Good morning. Happy Father's Day to those that are out there. I wanted you to know that some of my story today comes from a 13-year argument that I had with my own dad that I'm not sure he knew we were having. Do you know what it means to be somebody just like your parent, and everywhere you go, they go? Well, you're Bill's kid, or you're Deb's daughter, or you're Leah's daughter, right? Do you know what it's like? So I was just like him in a lot of ways, and for years, I really thought it was going to be McHugh and Son Architects and Planners. And then rebellion started in my life. And for about 13 years, I really struggled to stand in my dad's shadow with no way to get out of it. Something I never ever said was, or never ever did in that time, was introduce myself as Bill McHugh's son. Right? Because I was trying to be my own person, and for years as a youth worker, I understood that sometimes that rebellion comes out of a desire to self-differentiate, to be your own person. Now, my dad was not strict about it. He was trying to encourage his son to do what his son was good at, which is amazing. You know, I've got a brother who's an auto mechanic, and my auto mechanic brother was encouraged to be an auto mechanic. Not in the driveway next to the house, but somewhere else where there wouldn't be an oil stain on the driveway. I do need to understand that my brother often worked on cars right beside the house and would work on them, and they were often fast and loud and didn't have the same standard mufflers that most cars had, and so they would echo between the houses. And, you know, so he was encouraged, just find a spot to work on. Parents and children, children and parents, fathers and sons, and mothers and daughters, right? The comparison goes like this. Have you ever experienced the shadow of somebody else? Of course. So I didn't go into architecture. Some of you know that. I did pay for art school by drafting for my father, and I was doing drawings of the deck I'm about to build, and Caleb, Marika's boyfriend, says to me, "That looks like you've been trained." Yeah, I mean, my drawings look like an architect did them because I was trained by an architect. But everywhere I went, there's this one story. I was asked to work a retreat one time, and I made no secret that I wasn't always the nicest person between high school and college, and that I came to Christ after college, and so I'm a different person than I used to be. And the director of the retreat had a daughter that was my age, and I had not actually been that nice to her in the breakup. And he asked me to be on the thing, and this is what he said. He said, "Well, you're Bill's kid, you were always going to be okay." Do you understand what it means to stand in somebody's shadow? And that sometimes those shadows are comforting and excellent places to be. Now, just recently, I was at a barbecue for a graduate who'd gone to Orient School, and one of the things I do, I don't know if you know the story, you know, I'm extremely outgoing. You know, I'm telling you secrets that you didn't know, and that one of my most favorite things is to go into a room of people I don't know and to meet them. Now, I know that terrifies half this room, but it doesn't me. It's exciting and interesting. But I know that half the places my wife goes, she's Pastor Dave's wife. But in the Orient influence, I am Teacher Karen's husband. And it's good for me to be that, because I stand in her shadow. It's also good for me to know that sometimes when they see me and they see the things I do, that's Karen's husband, right? That our shadows reflect back on each other. So let me read this. This is Father's Day. Everybody's in somebody's shadow. From Psalm 127, this is how it goes. Unless the Lord builds a house, the work of the builders is wasted. Unless the Lord protects a city, guarding it with sentries will do no good. It is useless for you to work so hard from early morning until late at night, anxiously working for food to eat, for God gives rest to his loved ones. Children are a gift from the Lord. That's a nice transition there, right? You do all this work with your kids. I'm shaping them, I'm doing all this stuff. It is for naught unless the Lord is involved. For those parents out there, right? Do you understand what it means? You might try to raise your kids, you might try to be the one training them to do all that stuff, but unless God's involved in all your training, that isn't going to work. This is what it says. But this is the church, this is God's perspective on this. They are a reward for him. Children born to a young man are like arrows in a warrior's hand. How joyful is the man whose quiver is full of them. He will not be put to shame when he confronts his accusers at the city gates. Do you see the shadows? Do you see the shadows of interplaying that the dad in the story gets children as a gift from the Lord, and later on their behavior and his behavior sort of reflect on each other. Therefore, he benefits, and so do they. Mom benefits, and so do they from each other. It's not by accident that in this context I had Joanne also read the prodigal son. Do you know that he knew his dad treated people better than he was being treated? And he figured it out late in life. That does happen with some of us slow, hard-headed ones, right? We get in trouble and we start digging holes and we keep digging even though the trouble's over. But he figured it out. Look, the pigs are eating better than me. Dad doesn't do that. Can you see the realization? And he comes to himself and he goes, if I'm going to be a slave, that's a better place. Another story goes like this. Jesus tells this parable. But what do you think about this man, a man with 2 sons? He told the older boy, son, go out in the field and work in the vineyard today. And the son answered, no, I won't go. I've done that. But later he changed his mind and he went anyway. Then the father told the other son, you go. And he said, yes, sir, I will. But he didn't go. I think I've done that too. Which of the 2 boys obeyed his father? Well, the one that went. But what does the father really want? Does the father want a no but then a yes? Or a yes and then a no? What's the father want? Those dads in the room, don't be shy now. What do you want out of your kids? You want a yes and a willing heart. Right? Those 2 things, right? Those 2 things. It's tricky, though, to get the relationships right when they're in the shadows like that. You know, on the retreat system, and I told you this is a walk to Emmaus, that my dad was part of the original group that started it. Okay? And so when I went, I was Bill's kid. Everywhere I went, and I was Janet's kid. And people go, oh, well, you know all about this thing. Well, some of that is that when I was 16, they were adults going on the thing, and the meetings, the secretariat meetings, the controlling board meetings met in our living room when I was a kid. And sometimes you just get so proximity to it, you just know stuff. And all you have is data, you don't have experience, but it's tricky. I didn't want to go this is the story of how a lot of men go on this retreat. Karen wanted to go, so I went. Do you understand what I mean by that? I wasn't going to go. I knew everything I needed to know. I'm not going. Karen wanted to go, so I went because couples go together. When I came home, what I thought I knew was not right. When I came home, I learned more than I'd ever thought of. And in fact, Karen thought, well, maybe I don't want to go now, if that did that to him. But I went going, I'm Bill's kid, I know all about this. See, I was in the shadow. I just need you to hear in your own story the story about what it's like. I don't know your story and how you related with your parents and how you got out of their shadow, if you ever got out of their shadow. But this is the thing that I know now, that when I had started working these retreats and my dad had sort of retired from working on them, there was a time when I was asked to direct one. And so I went to direct one, and my dad worked, and people hadn't known him because he'd been gone for 10 years. And they came over to him and asked if he was Dave's dad. And he couldn't have been. You could see him just light up because now he was in a shadow. This is the truth about shadows. Sons are in their dad's shadows, daughters are in their mom's shadows and their dad's shadows, and in some ways it's more intricate than that. I think sometimes Alex is a little more like Karen and Marika is a little more like me. And so the shadows are kind of that way. Am I making that up? No. Okay. In some ways we're the same. I mean, we do have the same voice. If you've heard Alex talk, we have the same voice. But that voice, he comes by naturally because my dad has that voice. And so does my brother. We come by that. There's no getting out of that. But it's trickier, right? It's tricky. How do you let your kids be in your shadow, and how do you make a way for them? Why am I doing this? Why am I going into such length about parents and children? Because of this, okay? Are you ready for this? Everywhere we go, we are in our parent's shadow, or we are in our family shadow, or we are in our church's shadow, or we are in our country's shadow. Everywhere you go, you represent something. And I'm not making that up. If you go to America, or you go to France, the idea of an ugly American comes up. You're in that shadow. How you act matters. Yes? If I walk into a store or a shop in town and they know me, then our church is reflected upon. And in fact, you can see this even if they don't even know you're a Christian. You know, when Jesus walked into the room, in some of the rooms, some of the people acted like he was judging them. And he hadn't said anything yet. The shadow of who he was fell across them. And I said it, I think it's this way. The standard of what it's like to actually be human has walked into the room, and you instantly know that you're not the standard anymore and how you don't measure up. And so that person is clearly judging you. All the judgment is interior to you. Ooh, he's awesome, I'm not. Do you see how you feel judged? But it works that way for Christians when you walk into places too. When they know you're a Christian, have you ever walked into a room and been accused of judging people when you haven't done anything yet? Jesus has entered the room through you. And they, judging themselves, blame you. And if the world did that to him, it's most surely going to do that to you. Now, is it fair? Yes. It's fair. Did you know that Jesus is willing to accept the judgment of him because you walked in the room? So everywhere you go, they look at you and they think, if Christians are like that, Jesus must be. And he is in your shadow at that moment. I know you don't think of Jesus in your shadow, but do you know that the world judges Jesus by his followers, his kids? And I'm not making that up. And sometimes we've not done a so stupendous job of mirroring him. But here's the thing. He's not mad about that. He utterly and completely accepts the judgment of him because of our behavior. He goes, they're my representatives everywhere they go. They're mine. So the question isn't whether you're going to be a good witness to him or not, let me say that, I said that wrong. The question isn't whether you're going to witness for him or not. The question is whether you're going to be any good at it. Because everywhere you go, you witness for him. And it's like this. I know that some of you know that I have office hours at Ritz's, which is soon going to have a different name. I think it might have got a different name Friday because the drive-thru changed. Anyway, but Melanie is part of our church. And when I walk into Ritz's on Astor, I'm Melanie's pastor. And Melanie is judged by me, my behavior. And I'm judged by Melanie's behavior. And that is okay. Here, let me explain it a different way. Sometimes I'm traveling this week. I made a big deal out of it. It's a big deal. My parents' 70th anniversary is this week. And so I'm going down to do that. My mom doesn't always get my name right anymore. Do you know when she starts off with Stack Dave, because Stan and Kevin and Dave. And she's kind of going through the mental Rolodex to get through the one. And sometimes she just calls me Kevin, which is odd because he's blonde. Now, it makes sense that when my dad calls my brother Kevin Jay, because Jay was my dad's blonde brother, and Kevin is blonde, and so that makes sense. But when they call me Kevin, I have come to this understanding. I really like Kevin. I am completely okay with being misidentified as Kevin. Do you have a spot in your life where you're okay being misidentified? Yeah? How about, do you have a spot if you come to the place that no matter what your behavior's like, you're okay being identified as Jesus's? That's more difficult, isn't it? Well, wait, maybe I want to go to the grocery store and not be Jesus's in the grocery store. I want to push people aside I want to ram the carts. I'm flashing back to college days at Dismore's in Pullman, I think. Kart races in the aisles and things like that. But I wasn't Jesus's at that spot. Have you gotten to the spot where you understand that everywhere you go, people think about Jesus because you entered the room? Jesus stands in your shadow in the same way that you stand in his. You know who else stands in a shadow? God the Father stands in Jesus' shadow. He said, look, they don't know me. I'm going to send my son. I'm going to go this way, and that's how they'll know me, by my son. And so sometimes in Christianity, we hear the story that there's an Old Testament God and a New Testament God, and one of them's kind of cranky and the other one's much nicer. Have you ever heard that in real life? One of those, the one thinks God's really cranky, is because they don't know him very well and the shadow is sort of wispy. When Jesus comes, he fills out the information and changes the perspective of God because God is now known through the person of Jesus. And if you want to know what God's like, look at Jesus. In some way, if you want to know what Dave's like, look at Alex or Bill, because you get the full picture. Do any of you, does this ring true with some of you parents in the room, some of you children in the room? I know, now not all of you are parents, but all of you are children. Because all of us got parents someplace. What do we do with this sort of information? What do we do with this understanding that everywhere we go, we're standing in Jesus' shadow, but he's also standing in? What do you do with that? Did I miss the comment? No?
Behave.
You behave. Do you behave out of, okay, so for,
She looked at me and she said, I
well, I don't know anything about that discussion. I don't know how that discussion works or anything. I only know how they go with my own kids and me, and that'll be private to us later. But when you behave, which kid are you? Are you the one who says, yes, I will, but doesn't? Or the one who says, no, I won't, but does? What do you think?
lucky I have ones that say, yes, I will, and do it.
You're lucky. Wow, well done. I have those too. I do. But do they do it out of obligation? Do they do it out of love? Is there a difference? Yeah. Sometimes obligation turns to love. Did you know that? I think it's like learning to drive a car and stop at a stoplight. When you're first driving and they say stop, you go, ugh, I was going so good in this lane and now I have to stop. I stopped because I was told to stop. Those of you who've been driving for a while, why do you stop at red lights now? Because everybody deserves to live. And if you don't stop, then some people might not. But that's an obligation that you now do out of love of your life and other people's lives. Sometimes we learn love through obedience. I can look back at standing in my own dad's shadow and see all sorts of things that you didn't know came from him. If you know me now, you didn't know that some of the things I do are just straight out of the Bill McHugh playbook. Okay? Wise sayings. Even some of my sayings are straight from my dad's thing. You ever heard me say we went to separate schools together? Some of you have heard me say something like that. We went to the golf course in separate cars together. That's a dad. That's a Bill McHugh saying. My handwriting and the attention I've spent on my handwriting is from my dad. So I can look back and I can see his shadow go through my life and change the way that I understand, that I think about envelopes different. When you mail a package, do you think about what the stamp looks like? You do. Many of you get a roll and put a stamp on it and think it does its thing. Look, I like commemoratives because you only get one chance to make a good impression. And it might be on the outside of the envelope. I also like handwritten envelopes because character is involved. Now, you might say that I got in the line to be a character. I was trying to have character. But those are different and different understandings of the word. What things, as you look into your life and your life with Christ, are the things that knowing God comes through in you? What are the things that do it with me? I was not a reader. I came to God. I think I could make a case that I present as a reader, don't I? That's one of these things. What do we do with this? It's not just awareness, but it's also to be the kid that lets your yes be yes and your no be no. That you can have integrity to the call and how God has worked in your life. Another way to think about it is this. Have you ever thought of yourself as an arrow in God's quiver so that he won't be, what is the word from Psalm 127? I want to read that again. So that he will not be put to shame when he confronts his accusers at the city gates. That's what it means to be an arrow in God's quiver, that you've flown straight and true, and because of that, he's not maligned in the city gates because of you. The question isn't whether you're going to witness, it's whether you're going to be any good at it. Whether you're going to try, whether you're going to be truthful in the way you are. Does that mean that you have to be perfect? No. Even John Wesley, when he talked about perfection, didn't mean it that way. He meant you can become who God made you to be, and that would be perfect. Everybody stands in somebody's shadow. Who do you have standing in your shadow? Whose shadow do you stand in? And are you aware? Let's pray. Lord Jesus, I thank you for today. I thank you for your love. I thank you for helping Pastor Dave not go 40 minutes this week like he did last week. Thank you, Lord, for shadows and the way that we shape each other's lives because we are yours and you are ours. We love you, Lord. Help us live that way. In your precious name, amen.